Hello everybody and welcome back to A-Level Sociology. We're going to be continuing our discussion of the different sociological theories and different approaches that we're going to be interacting with in the few lessons when we're talking about different specific areas of sociology. So, like we mentioned, things like crime and deviance and education. And it's ironic that I said interact with because this lesson we're going to talk about interactionism. So interactionism is our, I believe, fourth or fifth theory that we're going to be discussing. And it is a sociological theory that suggests and implies and argues that society is determined by the behavior of individuals. Okay, so the behavior and the decisions made by individuals. So decisions made by individuals. And it is sometimes referred to as action theory as well, but we're going to refer to it as interactionism for the foreseeable future. And it actually differs from our other sociological theories, because if you remember, when we talked about functionalism and when we talked about Marxism and when we talked about feminism, we were all talking about different variations of structuralist theories. Structuralist theories, the idea that society and the roles and the ways in which society operates is conditioned quite heavily on the different structures within society. Well, interactionism doesn't actually make this claim. Interactionism is not a structuralist theory of sociology because it attempts to explain sociological concepts, but rather than through looking at things such as the structures within society, it looks through it through the lens of individual action and the interaction between individuals, which is why we call it interactionism. It's supposed to be quite an individualistic theory. And that's what's important about it and how it differs from these other areas of sociology. Now, the first step for the theories of interactionism is to look at society and to look at the idea that individuals interpret society around them. Okay, so this is the lens of analysis that we're looking at through which we're looking at. So we have a lens of analysis. And effectively, that is the first idea that we refer to in interactionism. And this is a very individualistic understanding of human nature. It takes individual people and individual interactions within people, and it looks at how society is interpreted through their eyes, through their lens. And people within society try to make sense of society. They try to make sense of how society operates, the kind of functions, the kind of roles, and the kind of systems that are in place within society. And according to interactionists, this is where the concept of culture comes from. So we will talk about culture and identity in a few lessons' time. But culture is derived in society from people's own ideas, and then taking these ideas and looking at how these ideas will interact with other ideas, with each other. And that's how we can sort of get a melting pot, if you will, of cultural norms and cultural attitudes. Now, what's important to note that even though interactionism isn't a structuralist theory, it's not a structuralist theory, it doesn't reject the importance of social structures. It does still recognize that societal structures are still important when explaining sociology. They're still important because interactionists argue that what people do is they respond to and interact with the structures in very different but also individual ways. And this therefore rejects the concepts of socialization, since individuals have the free will to make their own choices. And what interactionists argue is that from these free choices and the free will and the rejection of structuralism and socialization, what they argue is that all of these individual choices and the ways in which these individual choices interact with each other will inform and play into the broader societal trends. And this will have an impact on the broader social trends. So rather than having a situation where we have social structures, and these social structures influencing individuals and shaping how individuals look at the world and look at society, an interactionist argue that individuals will shape and view social structures. So it's the other way around almost. Social structures. So individuals inform on the nature of social structures and structural theories, rather than it being the other way around. And that's quite interesting. This is why we would say that it is not a structuralist theory. It's more of an individualist theory. And this brings us to a famous sociologist who was an interactionist, okay, Gushuni, and building off what we said about structuralism, their work was very, very interesting. So they said that they examined interactionist analysis of gender roles in homes, and this is actually a good example of how we can explain this using a good example of how we can explain how individuals inform societal structures rather than the other way around. So, according to this individual, interactionist approach looks at the decision that women made when it came to working from home, working outside of the home. Okay, so looking at the decision, individual decisions, and the free decisions for women to work outside of the home, and this was an individual choice. Okay, it's something that we need to make very, very clear. That it wasn't informed by societal structures that women began to work more and more outside of the home. It was something that was informed by individual choices. And that these individual choices and this broader trend of women working outside of the home and this becoming a more popular and common thing, that eventually led to larger social changes. So changes in social structures. So changes in social structures, in broader social structures, and because it became more acceptable for men to stay at home, for etc., etc. So we have this way in which a broad trend of individual choices begins to inform on the broader and the wider range of sociological structures. So the sociological theory is informed by individual choices.